How do you break the pattern? You stop chasing the warmth. Not coldly, not cruelly, but you hold your own temperature steady. When she's warm, you're warm. When she's cold, you give her space without panic, without pleading. A clean phrase: I've noticed we run hot and cold. I'd like to understand what's driving that when you're ready to talk. That sentence is important because it names the pattern without accusation. It invites communication. And if they're capable of real intimacy, it opens something. If they're not, you'll know because the coldness will increase the moment you stopped chasing. Fourth, jealousy bait. This one is common, and it often gets passed off as harmless. I'm just being friendly. Why are you so insecure? Jealousy bait is when someone, directly or indirectly, introduces the presence of other people interested in them as a lever to manage your behavior. It might look like mentioning a man's name frequently and watching your reaction, telling you casually that someone asked for her number, posting things designed to provoke, and then acting confused when they do. The purpose is to keep you off balance, to keep you competing for approval, to keep you slightly anxious and therefore easier to control. Here's the thing I want you to understand about jealousy bait, and this might be uncomfortable. It only works if you are not confident in your own value. A man who genuinely knows his worth doesn't scramble when he hears that someone else is interested. His internal response is something like, "That's interesting, and it doesn't change what I know about myself." So the antidote to jealousy bait is not coldness or retaliation. It is self-worth, fully inhabited. A clean phrase to use: she's free to make whatever choices are right for her. So am I. That sentence, even just said inside yourself, is the most powerful response to jealousy bait that exists. It recenters your power without drama. Fifth, future faking. Future faking is one of the most painful patterns we'll cover today because it targets something genuinely beautiful about you, your hope. A future faker makes promises about what the relationship will become. They paint a picture, a life together, a shared vision, plans and commitments that feels so real, so close, that you adjust your decisions around it. Once things settle down, I want to be fully present for you. I see a real future with us. We're going to look back and laugh about these hard times. And you believe them because you want to, because the vision is beautiful, because it feels like a contract. But the promised future never arrives. There's always another reason, another delay, another not yet. The key distinction between a future faker and someone who is genuinely navigating timing is actions. Real intentions show up in consistent behavior, even imperfectly. A person who is building towards something with you, you can see it, even in small ways. They are moving, even slowly, in the direction of their words. A future faker's actions never catch up to their promises. The words get bigger, the movement gets smaller. A clean question to ask yourself, quietly, honestly: if nothing changes, is the version of this relationship I have right now something I can sustain indefinitely? If the answer is no, and the future is always the justification, that is information you deserve to have. A clean phrase to use: I care about what we're building, and I need to see us both moving toward it. Not a timeline, just movement. That's not an ultimatum. That's a request for consistency, and a person who loves you won't find that unreasonable. Sixth, withdrawal as punishment. This one cuts deep in a particular way because it weaponizes something you naturally want: connection. Withdrawal as punishment looks like the silent treatment after a disagreement, becoming cold and unavailable after you've expressed a need or a boundary, withholding affection, conversation, or presence as a response to something you did or said that they didn't like. It says, without words, if you don't behave the way I want, I will take myself away from you. And for a man who values connection, who values peace in his relationship, who genuinely loves this person, the silence is unbearable. So he repairs, he apologizes, he smooths things over. But here is what he may not realize. He just learned that expressing himself comes with a penalty. Over time, that lesson accumulates. He learns to say less, to need less, to be less, not because he decided to, because he was trained to. The way out of this pattern is not to fight the silence. It is to stop being afraid of it. You cannot have a healthy relationship with someone whose primary tool for conflict resolution is disappearing. And the only way that changes is if you demonstrate clearly, consistently, without anger, that their absence does not collapse your world. A clean phrase: I can see you need some space. I'll be here when you're ready to actually talk. I'm not available for silence as an answer. Said calmly, said once, then you return to yourself. Now I want to shift, because we've been talking about what other people do, and I want to talk about you, specifically about the version of you that these patterns are designed to provoke. Every single tactic we've discussed has one thing in common. It is trying to make you react. React with jealousy, react with guilt, react with panic, react with anger. And when you react from those places, when you're pulled out of yourself, you lose access to your own judgment. You make decisions from a wound instead of from a values. This is why emotional self-control is not just a nice quality. In the landscape of relationship dynamics, it is the most powerful thing you carry. Let me say that differently. The most attractive, the most powerful, the most free version of you is the version that can feel something deeply and still choose how he responds. Not suppress, not deny, not perform calm while seething inside, but genuinely, quietly choose from a place of clarity what he says and does next. That is mastery. That is the kind of presence women who are genuinely healthy and secure will recognize immediately. And the women who are not genuinely healthy, they won't know what to do with it because they've only ever encountered men they could move. Some specific practices that built this. The first is the pause. Before you respond to anything that activates you, create a space, even 3 breaths, even 10 minutes, even a night. The pause is where your power lives. The second is naming the feeling without becoming it. There is a difference between I am angry and I notice I'm feeling angry right now. The second version gives you choice. The first version makes the anger the driver. The third is reconnecting to your values before you speak. Ask yourself, what kind of man do I want to be in this moment? Not what do I want to say, not what would feel good to say. What is true to who I am? When you answer from that place, everything you say carries a different weight. Now I need to say something directly to you, and I want you to hear it not as a criticism, but as an invitation. Some men, after learning about these patterns, experience a temptation. These work. Why shouldn't I use them? And I understand where that comes from. If you've been manipulated, there's a kind of power-reclaiming fantasy in imagining yourself as the one in control for once. But here is what I want you to know. A man who uses these tactics is not powerful. He's afraid. Love bombing comes from the fear that his authentic self isn't enough. Guilt tripping comes from the fear that asking directly for what he needs will be rejected. Jealousy bait comes from the fear that without leverage, she'll leave. Withdrawal as punishment comes from the fear that words won't work, so silence must do the job instead. Every single manipulation tactic is a substitute for genuine intimacy, and the cost of using them, even if they work in the short term, is that you become someone who cannot have a real relationship. Because real relationships require 2 people who are both actually present, actually honest, actually willing to be known. A man who manipulates cannot be known. He can only be managed. And I believe you want more than that. I believe you want to be known. I believe you want a relationship where you don't have to perform or strategize or watch your back, where the love is real because both people chose it freely. That relationship is possible, but it starts with you deciding that the dark tools are off the table, not because someone told you to, but because you've decided you're worth more than what they produce. Before I close, I want to leave you with something practical, because everything we've talked about requires you to be able to speak clearly, calmly, and without aggression in moments that are charged. Here is a short set of clean boundary phrases. These aren't scripts to memorize robotically, they are anchors, language you can adapt when you need to hold your ground with grace. I'm not comfortable with that, and I'm not going to pretend I am. I care about us, and I'm not willing to have this conversation at this volume. I'll come back when things are calmer. That feels like pressure to me. I need some space to think before I respond. I hear that you're frustrated. I'm also going to ask that you talk to me the way you'd want to be talked to. I'm not going to apologize for something I don't believe I did wrong, but I do want to understand what you're feeling. This relationship matters to me. What also matters to me is that we both feel free inside of it. Read those again when you need them, not as weapons, as mirrors, for both of you to look into together. This is the conversation I wanted to have with you today. Dark psychology in relationships is real. It happens to good men. It has probably happened to you, but you are not a victim of it. Not anymore. Because now you can see it, you can name it, and you can refuse it, both when it's aimed at you and when you might be tempted to reach for it yourself. That refusal is not weakness. It is one of the most honest expressions of strength a man can show. I'm Mia Maya. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this episode gave you something, push the thumbs up, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you on the next one. End of script. Word count, 2,700. Estimated runtime, 18.2 minutes. At relaxed narration pace.